Hey guys, so I know there's a lot of fear and misinformation, frankly, out there about immigration enforcement, and it's causing a lot of permanent residents and naturalized citizens to be freaking out and just panicking about what could happen, planning for the future. Scary times, and I don't want to add to that sense of panic or anxiety. And in fact, in most of my videos, I really try to take the opposite approach and explain how everything's gonna be all right for most people, at least for permanent residents and US citizens. But as each day passes, my opinions change as I'm exposed to new information. And recently, one of my colleagues with whom I share an office had a really stressful experience that I thought I would share. One of his clients was previously in removal proceedings, but the removal proceedings were dismissed. The client applied for Special Immigrant Juvenile status, which is a pathway to permanent residence for kids under the age of 21 who've been abandoned, neglected, or abused. There's a whole family court process and then an immigration process. It's a two-step bifurcated process, but that's beyond the point of this video. Anyway, there's a backlog for special immigrant juveniles, which means after you file the petition, currently you need to wait like 4 years before a priority date becomes current. And at that point, you could apply for the adjustment of status. This client who applied for SIJS, Special Immigrant Juvenile status, like 3 years ago, was something like 6 months away from the priority date being current. ICE officers went to his house to look for his brother, who had overstayed after entering the US from Spain. For those of you who are familiar with ESTA or visa waiver programs, Spaniards and many Europeans are able to enter the US without a tourist visa. They can come on something called the visa waiver program, where they could basically enter for 90 days and then voluntarily leave. They don't need to apply for a visa in advance. And the trade-off is you also don't have a right to really contest your deportation if you overstay. So you can enter the US easily, but you could also be deported pretty easily if you overstay your 90 days or you violate the terms or conditions of your stay in the United States. ICE officers went to this guy's house to find his brother who had overstayed from Spain. And while they're waiting outside, the client, who's like 6 months away from being eligible for adjustment of status and who was previously in deportation proceedings, but those proceedings were dismissed, everything was looking good, he was very close to being a permanent resident, got detained by ICE, and now they're trying to deport him from the United States. The particularly scary thing about this is that this kid, who's now finding himself in a detention facility somewhere in Louisiana, had deferred action. When someone has deferred action, it's kind of like TPS. Or DACA. Actually, DACA means deferred action for childhood arrival. So deferred action is actually in the name. All of these things, the similarity that they have is it's kind of a promise from the federal government to temporarily not deport you until some condition is met or satisfied. This kid had deferred action. He received a letter from SIJS indicating that he had deferred action, and he was actually able to apply for employment authorization based on that deferred action, but ICE didn't care. They detained him anyway, and now we're dealing with it. I don't know exactly what the outcome of this case is gonna be, but if ICE is going after people who actually have deferred action, what that means to me is that anyone who's not a permanent resident is fair game for being detained by ICE. I do a lot of marriage-based and family-based adjustment of status, and a question I regularly get from my clients is, okay, while my green card application through marriage or through this petition, while my green card adjustment of status is pending, like, can I go on this trip to California? Or can I go on this trip to Florida? And my response is, if you encounter ICE, you might get detained. And the fact that you have an adjustment of status application pending isn't gonna necessarily save you. It's gonna be a case-by-case determination. And if you think things are bad now, wait until all of this ridiculous funding from the big beautiful bill kicks in. I've said this before, but the high watermark for deportations was under Obama when he received $6.2 billion for ICE funding. And he deported 450,000 immigrants in a single year. Historically, over the last decade or two, the number of deportations a year was pretty constant, around 300,000. So 6.2 billion in funding caused a 50% increase in those numbers of deportations. That is child's play compared to the amount of funding that just passed. ICE now has $100 billion over the next 4 years. If we break that up, that's 25 billion a year. That's a 4 times increase over what Obama had at the high watermark of deportations. So if you think things are bad now, it's about to get so much worse. When ICE quadruples its funding, what do you think is gonna happen? Do you think they're gonna just go to every Home Depot, restaurant, and construction site to try to round up people who they racially profile and deem to be undocumented immigrants? Yeah, they're gonna do that, but after some time, people are gonna stop showing up to those places, and who are they gonna go after next? They're gonna go after anybody who's not a permanent resident. And we see this happening with people who are seeking asylum, who have lawful applications pending. We've even seen it for people who are here on work visas, who just have, Muslim sounding names. It's happening, and it's about to get much worse. So I'm just very afraid over what the next 4 years have to offer. Anyway, guys, I try not to make these videos that increase the amount of fear out there, but I'm feeling scared. So I thought I would make a video expressing how I'm feeling and just sharing this experience that we recently had. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you're interested in more immigration related updates or just some immigration lawyers' perspective on the state of affairs, be sure to subscribe. If you actually need help with a family-based immigration issue, I focus on marriage-based immigration and petitions for family members. Also citizenship and naturalization issues. So if you need any assistance with any of those things, or you just want to talk to a lawyer or get some feedback or advice on what to do, how to create a strategy, be sure to schedule a consultation. My information for scheduling a consultation, including a booking link, are in the video description below. So check it out. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next time for another video.